Phil, thank you so much. Phil Nedley there, former coach to Beth Mead when she was a little girl who, of course, picked up BBC Sports Personality of the Year 2022. You're watching BBC News.
You're live with Lucy Hockings on BBC World News. We will never surrender. President Zelensky's defiant message to the US Congress. With tens of billions of dollars more being asked for, he uses his address to address concerns about the escalating cost of the conflict.
Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security.
As the most right-wing government in Israel's history prepares to take office, we'll look at how the election could empower the settler movement. And festive good fortune for some, with €2.5 billion up for grabs in Spain's traditional Christmas lottery. The next half hour will be live in Kyiv, Jerusalem and Madrid. Ukraine will never surrender. That was the resolute message President Zelenskyy presented to the world's most powerful legislative body as he became one of a handful of leaders to address the US Congress more than once. In his first overseas trip since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, President Zelenskyy received the red carpet treatment in Washington. He was drumming up more support for his country's fight and appealing for humanitarian and military aid. And in response, we saw President Biden pledging that the US would stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, as he promised another $1.85 billion in assistance. Our correspondent Neda Tawfiq begins our coverage. Let's take you now to Australia, where police have arrested the suspected head of a global drug trafficking syndicate, which is said to dominate the hard drugs market across Asia. Sochi Lo was one of the world's most wanted men and is known as the Asian El Chapo. The founder of the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX has been extradited from the Bahamas to the United States. Sam Bankman-Fried was flown to New York, where he faces multi-billion-dollar fraud charges. Police in the Pacific Island nation of Fiji have said that the military will be deployed to maintain security and stability. This is after they had elections last week that ended in deadlock. The police commissioner said the move was in response to intelligence about planned civil unrest and the targeting of minority groups. The current Prime Minister, to whom police commanders are loyal, has not yet conceded defeat. You're live with Lucy Hockings. Still to come. The UN Security Council passes a landmark resolution calling for an end to political violence in Myanmar. We'll be live in Madrid as well, where billions of euros is up for grabs in the traditional Christmas lottery. Al Gordo. You're live with Lucy Hockings. The UN Security Council has for the first time passed a resolution, and it calls for Myanmar's military government to end political violence. They also called for the immediate release of all political prisoners, including the ousted Prime Minister Aung San Suu Kyi. Tom Prada reports. All right, well, we'll let you know how we get on. I've still got hope, and I'm pleased you brought me hope, Sergi. See you in a few minutes' time back in the newsroom, and I'll see you for the headlines coming up. Bye-bye. You're live with Lucy Hockings on BBC World News. We will never surrender. President Zelensky's defiant message to the US Congress. With tens of billions of dollars more being asked for, he uses his visit to address concerns about the escalating cost of the conflict.
Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security.
As the most right-wing government in Israel's history prepares to take office, we'll look at how the election could empower the settler movement. The World Health Organization warns about the worsening COVID situation in China as cases continue to rise. And the UN Security Council passes a landmark resolution calling for an end to political violence in Myanmar. In the programme, we'll be live in New York, Kyiv and Barcelona. Ukraine will never surrender. That was the resolute message that President Zelenskyy presented to the world's most powerful legislative body as he became one of a handful of leaders to have addressed the US Congress more than once. In his first overseas trip since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, President Zelenskyy received the red carpet treatment in Washington, drumming up more support for his country's fight, and he appealed as well for further humanitarian and military aid. And in response, we saw President Biden pledging that the US would stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes and promising another $1.85 billion in assistance. Our correspondent Nedit Tawfiq begins our coverage. Yolande Nalder, you're live with Lucy Hockings. Still to come, the UN Security Council passes a landmark resolution calling for an end to political violence in Myanmar. We'll get the latest as well from New York. Weather forecasters saying a major winter storm may bring the coldest Christmas in 4 decades to parts of the US. Live with Lucy Hockings. Let's update you on the situation with COVID in China, because the WHO is now voicing concern over what they say is an evolving situation. The WHO chief, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says the number of severe cases is on the rise. Now, this comes as China reversed its zero COVID policy and stopped most testing and tracing. Hospitals, pharmacies, crematoriums in the country all say they are busier than usual. Dr. Tedros called on Beijing to provide more data and to urgently step up its vaccination program. Let's take you to Spain now, where so many people there are crossing their fingers in the hopes of a prize in the world's biggest lottery. It is El Gordo, the fat one. It's been running for over 2 centuries and it's a very long draw. We're into its 4th hour now. The top prize is worth $400,000, but unlike in many other lotteries, there's not one single jackpot, but many smaller prizes. We're going to be talking about this again in about 20 minutes' time, but let's leave you for now with the sound of the numbers being sung.
37.870 euros.
You're live with Lucy Hockings on BBC World News. We will never surrender. President Zelenskyy's defiant message to the US Congress. With tens of billions of dollars more being asked for, he uses his visit to address concerns about the escalating cost of the conflict. As the most right-wing government in Israel's history prepares to take office, we look at how the election could empower the settler movement. Iran has seen more than 3 months of protests after the death of Mahsa Amini in September. We will also hear from those badly injured by authorities in the protests. And festive good fortune for some, with more than $2.5 billion up for grabs in Spain's traditional Christmas lottery. President Zelenskyy has given a defiant address to the world's most powerful legislative body. The Ukrainian leader telling the US Congress his country is alive and kicking and will never surrender. His trip to Washington has been about drumming up support for the war effort, appealing for more humanitarian and military aid as well. And it comes amid indications that the Republicans will now scrutinise US support for the war more closely when they gain a majority in the House of Representatives in January. It is President Zelenskyy's first overseas trip since Russia invaded Ukraine back in February, and this is what he told US lawmakers. It was such a powerful message of hope from President Zelenskyy for you all just a few days before Christmas. Kira, thank you so much. I hope the heat, the electricity stays on for you and your family over the next few days. Thank you.
Thank you, and glory to Ukraine.
Do stay with us here on BBC World News, still to come. We'll take you live to Spain. The country kicks off Christmas festivities there with the world's biggest lottery. Billions of euros up for grabs. You're live with Lucy Hockings. Iran has seen more than 3 months of protests after the death and custody of Mahsa Amini in September. Thousands have now been arrested, many of them women. Some of those imprisoned report being subjected to torture at the hands of the authorities. Families are also often threatened and prevented from speaking out. And the accounts that have emerged paint a grim picture of violent treatment. The BBC's Maria Mafshang has been following one woman's experience.
I do have a ticket with my family, but no luck yet.
No, okay, so we both need a bit of luck before it ends. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck. Have a good Christmas. Let's just take you as well to live pictures in Denver. They're really preparing there in some places in Colorado and other parts of the US for the coldest Christmas that they've had in 4 decades. It could get to minus 16 Fahrenheit here in Denver. That will be the coldest place. They will really bear the brunt of this cold snap that is happening right across the US. It is called a once-in-a-generation cold snap. It began in the Pacific Northwest on Tuesday, I think, and now it's coming east, and they're calling it a bomb cyclone. Could happen by Friday. So stay warm if you're in the US. I hope this doesn't interfere with your Christmas. I won't see you again till Boxing Day. So if you are celebrating Christmas, have a lovely time with your friends and family. Bye-bye for now.